Yo, what's good everybody? Today we finally got the Dark Souls 3 boss tier list. I know a couple of you have been waiting for this for a while, so usually I do these tier lists straight after beating the game, but I thought I would get some more runs in me this time so I could actually give some proper input. You know, sometimes you fight a boss for the first time and you don't really like it, but then you fight them a few more times and they start to grow on you. So but yeah, let's not waste any time. Let's just get into it. All right, first up we have got Gundyr, the baby one. You know, I think this is a solid first boss. Nothing crazy, not too challenging, but the boss arena is nice. The soundtrack is really nice. I think the phase 2 transition is really cool the first time you see it as well. Just fully catches you off guard. I feel like the difficulty for this boss is perfect as well. Like, it's not like Soldier of Godric level easy, but at the same time, if you know what you're doing, you will just stomp it, right? Anyways, nothing to really write home about. I think we'll just leave him in B tier. I think it's a good first boss, but I don't think I can put it on the same level as like Margit or Father Gascoigne. But it's still a fun first boss and not too overwhelming for new players, so B tier it is. All right, next up, Vordt of the Boreal Valley. My honest opinion of Vordt, I think he's actually a decent boss, you know. Obviously, he's not difficult at all, but it still feels like a fun fight. Like, even though it's easy, it does still feel like you're fighting a boss, which is good. And then to address the obvious, his soundtrack, bro, oh my god. So unnecessary, but it went so hard. Bro did not need that whole orchestra. Yeah, I think Vordt in B tier is acceptable. I think if I had to explain my criteria for each ranking, S tier for me is like, this fight is perfect. I wouldn't really change anything. A is like, this fight is really good, but there are major flaws in it. Or it has S tier elements, but it's only partial. And then B tier is like, yeah, this fight was fun. It was good, but just not as iconic or memorable as the other bosses. I guess C tier for me is kind of like, I don't mind the fight, but I also wouldn't care if it wasn't in the game. And then D tier is like, I actively just dislike the boss. But yeah, I think Vordt in B tier is completely acceptable, solely for his theme. Definitely one of the most iconic songs in all video game history. All right, next up, we got the big tree. Cursed Rotted Greatwood. You know, I wouldn't say this fight is underrated, but I do think it's overhated. You know, I've never really had a problem with this fight. I know a lot of people dislike it, but I don't really see it personally. I guess it's just gross to a lot of people, you know, going around popping his eggs. Like, it does give off strong pimple popper vibes, and if you ain't into that, I get it. I mean, I'm not either, but I'm more just apathetic to it. But I honestly think it's probably one of the better gimmick bosses when I think about it. Like, if you compare it to Wolnir or Yorm or the Big Dragon, like, it's really not that bad. I like the boss arena too. It's kind of pretty. I can appreciate some pink flowers. Yeah, Cursed Rotted Greatwood. I'm not going to put it in D tier because I don't dislike it, but it is a bit meh. I can't lie. Like I said, if it wasn't in the game, I wouldn't miss it. All right, next up, Cristal Sage. Cristal Sage, once again, not much to really write home about. I don't think it's very fun, personally. I feel like when you're fighting this guy, you're just hoping to not get cheesed or just nuked in some sort of way. Obviously, you're not the highest level when you fight them, and sometimes you get hit with some mad combos. But yeah, let's just keep this one short and sweet. I'll put it in C tier as well. I don't hate the fight, but it's very forgettable. It's not a boss that anyone looks forward to really fighting. One of them ones that's just kind of in the way. It's not challenging or stimulating. It's just kind of there. We got after, I guess it's Deacons, isn't it? Deacons of the Deep. Yeah, this fight's no good. I think we can universally agree that this is the first D tier boss. I guess we can give it its flowers, which is that the soundtrack is really good. That's pretty much the only good thing about this fight, though. It doesn't feel like a boss. To be honest, I don't know what it feels like. You know, you just hit the main enemy a couple of times, run away. Really not sure what they were thinking when they designed this. It's just not good at all. Even phase 2 is no good, you know. You just get involved and start pounding. No pause on that either. This fight is just straight ass. Right, the next boss, I believe, is Abyss Watchers. The Abyss Watchers fight is so cool, man. I really enjoy this one. Once again, start with the good things. I think the most notable thing about this fight is the soundtrack. The soundtrack was so good, man. You know, seeing that main Abyss Watcher revive for the first time with that music in the back, it was so tough, man. Some of his phase 2 attacks are so fucking sick as well. It is a very, very fun fight when you do fight him for the first time. Or just if you're replaying the game and you fight him at an appropriate level, which I've never done. I guess my only gripe with the fight, I wish phase 1 was different. Never been a fan of fighting multiple people and I never will be. I think it would have been perfect if they just made phase 1 the one guy but gave him like double the health or something. And then just kept phase 2 the same. I think phase 2 is perfect. But yeah, Abyss Watchers definitely going A tier. Great boss. I'm not going to put it in S tier because S tier is reserved for like my favorite bosses of the game, but I still think this boss is really good. I think this is probably the first boss in the game where you're like, nah, this game's got some girth to it, you know, because for clarity, I'm ranking these bosses in the order of which I found them, and the first 5 bosses were all right, but Abyss Watchers was the first time where you're like, yeah, this game kind of good. All right, after Abyss Watchers, we got High Lord Wolnir. High Lord Wolnir, I think on the first playthrough, this boss is decent. The jump scare to me was pretty funny. I think for a lot of people, they probably saw his hands, so it wasn't really a jump scare, but for me, because I've got a ring light just shining on me, my screen is darker. And I do think his design is really cool. The only problem is the replay value just falls off a cliff with High Lord Wolnir. You know, on future playthroughs, it's super forgettable, not challenging at all, not stimulating at all. It's just like, yeah, let's get him out the way. I guess I'm going to put Wolnir in low C tier. Like, I don't dislike the fight, but once again, if it wasn't in the game, I would not care in the slightest. All right, after Wolnir, we had Old Demon King. Old Demon King to me is a very decent fight. It's not the best fight in the game to me, but it's also not bad. I think his design is kind of cool. His soundtrack was decent too, and it does at least feel like you're fighting a boss, unlike some of these other ones. Also got a lot of cool moves, you know. He's got the meteor shower, got the tactical nuke at the end. I think that probably caught most of us off guard on our first playthrough. Finally, that little detail at the end where he can't fight back anymore because he's just got no strength. I like shit like that. I thought it was really cool. You know, I think lore-wise, he's the last demon alive, right? So he's just sick and tired of living. By the time we get to him, he has no more strength left. Bro just wants to retire. So for me, I'll keep him in B tier. I think he's in the same sort of level as Vordt and Gundyr. He's definitely in a tier above these three in my opinion, so B tier it is. All right, after Wolnir, you're probably thinking Pontiff, but I went the wrong way and I ended up fighting Yorm, so we're gonna do Yorm next. Yorm the Giant. This fight was a mess for me on my first time. Shout out to all the OGs who did watch my first playthrough, but I did not realize Yorm was a gimmick fight. This fight was an actual nightmare. It took about 15 minutes. I was just slicing his hands and elbows up. To be real though, I do think it's more fun fighting him that way. Obviously, it would have been ideal if I did more damage, but his moveset's really not that bad. And his soundtrack's fucking fire, by the way. I doubt a lot of people have even heard it because you just kill him so quick normally. The only problem with Yorm is that since he was a main boss, you know, he was one of the 5 cinders or whatever the fucking called. He was a Lord of Cinder, right? Like, the fight probably should have been better. You know, from a cinematic standpoint, the Storm Rule is kind of cool, but with a character like Yorm, he shouldn't have been the easiest boss in the game. And he pretty much is, so. I don't know if we should put it in C tier or D tier, honestly. We might have to put Yorm in D tier for disappointment. Not a boss I dislike, but end of the day, should have been better. All right, so now we finally got Pontiff. I'm gonna keep Pontiff short and sweet. This boy is going in S tier. The first S tier boss. I think he's such a cool boss, man. Sensational aura. I mean, everything about this fight is fire, man. The boss arena's clean. I love how he doesn't attack you straight away. His moveset's super cool. Got some of the best combos. The magic and fire, once again, just a super cool aesthetic. I know I said I don't like fighting 2 people at the same time, but it doesn't feel like that. I guess my only critique is I wish he was a bit harder. But at the same time, I heard a lot of people struggled with this boss on their first time, so like I did find him kind of late. To be fair, maybe S tier is too high. Maybe he should be an A tier. Yeah, on second thought, we're going to have to demote him. I think the only reason why he doesn't hold up in S tier is because of replay value. You know, the first time round, he's very challenging and he is very cool, but every other time I fought him, I killed him in about 15 seconds. So I understand that it is a me issue because I always fight him over leveled. But at the same time, the fact you can fight him over leveled is probably what brings it down a bit for me. You know, the bosses that will be in S tier will be ones that were challenging on the first playthrough and still stay challenging. So for me, I'll keep him in high A, but if there is anyone that puts him in S tier, fully understandable. All right, after Pontiff, we have Aldrich, right? I'm gonna keep it 100 with you guys. Aldrich is not a good boss. Not to me, at least. It's not a fight I look forward to. I don't think the design is very fun. I've never enjoyed bosses that try and just run away from you as soon as you get close. You know, I understand how that's how mages fight, but it's not conducive to the most fun gameplay. I think the only good thing about this fight is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is very good. But other than that, I don't like this fight. You just die in the cheesiest of ways. Like, the arrows attacks fucking suck. The fact that he can shoot you through the pillars is annoying as fuck because you think you're safer and then you're just not. And then you got all those slow ass floating purple balls. Like, nah, this fight is not it. So despite the good soundtrack, Aldrich is going D tier. I actually dislike fighting Aldrich more than any boss on this list so far. Even Deacons, you know. I think Deacons is a shit fight, but I don't mind it. Yorm is the same. It's kind of a shit fight, but I don't mind it. Aldrich is like, I actively don't want to fight this guy. I just don't. Right, after Aldrich, I believe I fought Dragon Slayer Armour. He was next up. Dragon Slayer Armour, man, this fight was so fun. I think on your first playthrough, he has to be S tier. His aesthetic is sick. His soundtrack is sick. His attacks are sick. Like, everything about this fight is pretty much perfect. Even the weird dragon thing in the back throwing poop at you, like, it's not even a bad thing. It's kind of funny. You know, the more I talk about it, the more I feel like I have to put him in S tier. Like, there's nothing about this fight I would change. It's just fun every time. Phase 1 is good. Phase 2 is good. Not to mention his boss weapon is fucking awesome. Probably one of my favorite weapons in the game. The Dragon Slayer Great Axe. Yeah, you know what? Dragon Slayer Armor, we're doing it, boys. S tier boss. It's an amazing fight the first time round, and it's still fun on future playthroughs. And genuinely, I've got 0 complaints. I wouldn't change anything in this fight. I think it's super good. Wait, back up, boys. Back up. I forgot the dance. What am I doing, bro? This might be controversial, but I really like this fight, you know? I really do. Like, being real, there's only one complaint I have with the Dancer, and that's that grab hitbox, right? The grab hitbox is so bad, bro. If you don't roll to the left, you are getting grabbed. But other than that, I actually feel like this fight is very good. And I think this boss gets more fun the more playthroughs you do. I love knowing that you can beat this boss early and just max the fuck out of your weapon if you're good at the game. Like, a lot of the time when you replay this game, the bosses, you just trivialize them because they're so easy. But being able to fight Dancer at like level 20 or just whenever you feel comfortable, I feel like it's so good. I mean, this isn't even mentioning the fact she's got some of the coolest moves. You know, they're so unique and elegant. I really like this fight a lot. I think on my first playthrough, I probably would have put Dancer in A tier, but now I've got a few runs under my belt. I think Dancer's an S tier boss. It's such a fun fight every time, and once again, I wouldn't change anything besides that one grab hitbox, but it's like, who even gets grabbed by that? All right, next up, we've got Osiris, the Consumed King. You know, Osiris is a weird one because it's not a fight I typically enjoy doing, but it's not because I think the boss has bad moves or anything. It's just disturbing. But I think the fact it is disturbing means they did a good job. His charge attacks are really fucking annoying. I swear they're not telegraphed at all. You know, one minute he's just standing there, the next minute he's inside you, no pause. Like, there is no sign it's coming. He just fucking rams you out of nowhere. I guess it also loses points for being censored, right? Like, yes, it would be disturbing to see Baby Ocelot getting fucking slammed into the ground, but it's kind of weird just seeing him walk like this and there's just nothing there, right? I think for me, I'll leave Osiris in B tier. I will say his soundtrack goes so hard, but yeah, not the best fight in the game, not the worst fight in the game. It's just fine. All right, next up, where's my boy? Where's my dog, Champ Gundyr? What a fucking boss this is, bro. This is one of the first times where a boss has given me PTSD from beating the fuck out of me, but I've actually been able to overcome it. Like, every time I fight Champ Gundyr going forward, I love the fight. He was probably the hardest boss for me on my first playthrough, but this fight is absolute cinema. It is completely undeniable. Probably the best moveset of any boss in this game, if we're being honest. It does feel like a dance, you know? He attacks, you attack, he attacks, you attack. I mean, he's parryable if you are good at the game. I mean, it's not something I've done before, but it looks super fun. I haven't seen any lore videos, but from what I have heard about Gundyr, he's just so fucking cool. Like, I heard he's basically us, but the Firekeeper wasn't there or something, right? So, well, she was already dead, right? You know, her eyeballs were left there. So yeah, Champ Gundyr the GOAT, easy S tier boss, super good boss. Like, when I think about it, he's probably my favorite boss whenever I replay the game. There's never any anxiety that he's going to be too hard, but it's just so fun. All right, I guess we'll hit up the Archdragon Peak now. So Ancient Wyvern, or Wyvern, however you say it. This boss fight is complete arse. It doesn't even feel like a boss. On the first playthrough, it kind of felt like you were just solving a puzzle. Trying to run past all those snake boys is absolute hell. It's not fun at all. To me, the only fun way to fight this boss is to try and skip it. You know, at least that way you feel cool when you plunge on him from the ground. But if you fight this boss the way you're intended, it is a terrible experience. So D tier is the obvious answer. I doubt anyone likes this boss. All right, Nameless King. I feel like the Nameless King phase is so obviously an S tier, right? And I think everyone would agree with that. Even the delays, they're not that bad after a little while. And if anything, it's fun that he's got a lot of delays because you can just learn them and then you're on your toes the whole time. Like, I feel like with Champ Gundyr, the fight is very predictable, as in you just hit, roll, hit, roll, hit, roll. With Nameless King, it's like you hit and then you roll, you wait, roll, roll. Like with Nameless King, you can't punish his combos or he'll hit you, so you have to actually pay attention. So phase 2 is easy S tier, but phase 1, man. Phase 1 just frustrates me. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just a bit boring. Like, it just feels like a really tedious act you have to get through to get to the good fight, and I'm not sure I can put him in S tier because of that. You know, Champ Gundyr, Dragon Slayer Armour, Dancer, to me they're all fights that start fun and end fun, and they're also fun in the middle. Like, it's just a good time start to finish. With Nameless King, it feels like only half the fight is fun. Do we do it, boys? Do we go S tier or A tier? It feels so disrespectful putting the Nameless King in A tier, man. Nameless King gotta be the most iconic boss in this game, surely. You know what? Fuck it. Nameless King is going in S tier. Phase 2 is that good, but at least you guys know my feelings about it. It probably should be A tier, but I will give him a pass this one time. It's going to be super cool seeing him in Night Rain as well. I really hope they give him some more moves and stuff like they have with some of the other bosses. But yeah, Nameless King is too cool. I will have to overlook phase 1 this one time. All right, I guess it's DLC time now. So who we got first? We got the Wolf, the Grave Tender, and the Wolf Tender. There's a lot of good about this fight, but there's also a lot of bad about this fight, unfortunately. Let's start with the obvious. Phase 1 is complete cheeks. I mean, it is just absolutely terrible. Fighting a boss that's a player model, I think it's just lazy, personally. Phase 2 I do like a lot. I do like fighting the Wolf, and the boss theme is incredible. I mean, whoever was on that violin was fucking cooking. But phase 1 is so arse, man, so I'm gonna have to leave the Wolf in B tier. I think if they put more effort in and made the Grave Tender guy like an actual boss, you know, with his own design and his own moves, like, it could have easily been A tier, even an S tier fight. But no, having that one guy and his little wolves around, nah, it's just lazy. I heard so many good things about the DLC going going into it. So when he was the first boss, I was so deflated. I guess an issue that I had personally is that I just came off Bloodborne, and the Bloodborne DLC was straight fucking cinema. Like the fact that Ludwig was the first boss of Bloodborne, and then for me the first DLC boss for Dark Souls 3 was this guy. Nah, I was so underwhelmed. Anyways, let's move on. Oh shit, I forgot to do the Lothric princes. Oh, my brain is not working today. All right, Lothric and Lorien. I don't know how I feel about this fight. I feel like on paper, this should be like an A tier or even S tier fight. But there's something about this fight, man. I do not enjoy it. I think phase 1 is perfect. I wouldn't change phase 1 at all. But I hate the way phase 2 starts. Since the challenge ones I do are low vigor, I feel like there's just a 50-50 chance that I'll just die straight away. Because he does that stupid attack where those balls just spawn for like 30 seconds. And I just don't like that paired with the randomness of the teleporting. Not only do you not know where he's going to teleport, you also don't know what attack he's going to use. It's like trying to figure all of that out whilst the balls are flying at you is just annoying. Once again though, similar to a lot of the bosses, the soundtrack for this fight is incredible. One of the better soundtracks in the game for sure. I guess for me, I'm going to also have to leave the princes in B tier. I can at least acknowledge why a lot of people would like this fight, but for me, it's just not it. Like on paper, the fight is good, but I just don't enjoy doing it personally. All right, anyways, back to the DLC, Sister Frieda. Ooh, this one might be controversial. Sister Frieda's another one of them bosses that easily could have been S tier. You know, there's definitely S tier moments in this fight. Right, if we start with the good things, I like her design a lot. I think she's a very aesthetic boss, and I do like her toes. I think the scythe is sick as well, man. She's such a bad bitch. I think I said during one of my challenge run videos, I do enjoy when bosses have 3 phases, on the condition that they build on each other and get progressively cooler as it goes on. And unfortunately for Frieda, this is not something she does. I think phase 1 is perfect. I think phase 3 is perfect, but phase 2 is not good at all. On the first playthrough, this was so unbelievably frustrating and unfun. Like, this fight is just straight up knowledge. If you don't know that you can backstab her, and you don't know how to separate her and her dad, and you can't figure out the windows when to attack him and stuff, like, it's just not fun at all. And it's so tedious as well, because something people don't talk about. Phase 3 is so much harder than phase 1 and 2 combined, but having to just grind through phase 1 and 2 just to get to phase 3 every time, oh my god. What a ball ache that fight was, man. Like, when I think of the best 3 phase bosses, I think Lady Maria, Orphan of Kos, Gale, Ishin. Oh my god, that fight is one of the greatest fights of all fucking time, you know? Like, if you give the boss one moveset, phase 2 they level up, phase 3 they level up more, that shit's just cinema. So this might upset some people, but I'm gonna have to put her in A tier. I'm not gonna put her in S tier because it's just not the most fun fight. Like, yes, she has got aura and phase 3 is fucking awesome, but having to grind through phase 1 and phase 2 just kills the fight for me. All right, next up we got Demon Prince. Oh, this one might be controversial too. Alright, I think with Demon Prince, I'm just going to start with the good things first. First of all, phase 2 is fucking awesome. I think it's so creative that they made 2 separate phase 2s depending on which demon you kill first. But I will still say I don't think it's the best. I think on paper it's cool, but in execution it's not good. The thing is, the laser beam phase is so much easier than the other ones, so it's like, why would anyone even go for it, you know? Also, I think the soundtrack's super good, his design is super good, his attacks are super good. Ignore that voice crack, please, you heard nothing. Phase 2, I have no complaints, and I think phase 2 is definitely S tier. The problem with this fight is that I just despise phase 1 now. That strength only run really ruined me. It was not fun at all. I think if you just break down what phase 1 actually is, it's a terrible fight. Like, the whole premise of the fight is you just run away until one of them stops chasing you. So you spend the first like 45 seconds of the fight doing nothing essentially, and then you have to worry about getting hit by toxic because you pretty much just lose the fight if you do get toxicated. I think Demon Prince would have been the best fight in the game if they just made phase 1 one of the phase 2s, and then phase 2 the other phase 2. I don't know why they didn't do that. Like, imagine you drop in and you just immediately fight Demon Prince laser beam phase, and then you beat him and he revives, and then he's got like the meteor phase, right? That shit would have been so fucking good. But no, we have to fight these 2 absolute dickheads first for no reason. So same as Frieda, you've got S tier moments, and the final part of the fight is super good, but it's just not good from start to finish. So I'm not putting it in S tier. I mean, you guys know where I stand. All right, next up we've got Dark Eater Midir. All right, let's not waste any time. Dark Eater Midir, easy S tier. I love this fight so much. I think it might be my favorite fight in this game. I'll start with the bad things. The worst thing about this fight is not the fight itself. The worst thing about Midir is just finding him initially, right? Now, I'll put my hand up and say I had to go on YouTube to find out how to fucking find this guy, and I don't believe there's a single person out there that actually found him legitimately. There's just no way. Like, whose idea was it to put a hidden path in a random elevator, and then even if you do miraculously find the elevator, there's another hidden hidden wall. Like, why are they hiding this guy so much? And then the other thing I don't like the run back. I personally don't like having long run backs on hard bosses. Because when you've got a hard boss, you know you're going to be fighting him for a long time anyway. You don't want to have that added frustration of just wasted time running back and forth. I know it's not that far, but the fact you have to wait for the elevator and then you got to go down the ladder, it's like, oh, it's just long. If they just put a bonfire in the room before the giant drop, would have been way better. But anyways, besides that, this fight is so good. The boss arena is beautiful. The soundtrack is beautiful. His design is beautiful. It's just so good. Even the build up to the fight was super good. You know, knock on the door, that lady's telling you about how he's being consumed by darkness and stuff. And then one minute he's setting you on fire, the next minute you're having a little scrap on the bridge. But yeah, I think the design for this fight is so fun. You know, he's got a certain set of moves you got to wait out and dodge, and then you get your turn to hit. And he does his moves, you get your chance to hit again. Very fucking cool boss, man. I could definitely see how this would have paved the way for like Placidusax and Bale and stuff. It's definitely a simpler version of those two bosses, but it's still so fun. All right, next up, Half-Light. All right, Half-Light is objectively the worst boss of all fucking time. This boss is so unbelievably bad that I will never fight him again in my life. He will get cheesed 100% of the time and I will not feel any remorse. First of all, the worst thing about this fight that makes me sick to my fucking stomach, listening to Judicator Argo just fucking waffle for like 10 minutes before the fight starts. The fact you can't skip that dialogue is crazy because that bitch speaks so slow. And then once again, Half-Light, he's just another player boss. It's lazy as shit. His moves are annoying as shit. Like, I just don't understand what was going through their head when they made this boss. Like, I'm just guessing they ran out of budget. Like, they had to have, right? Because the thing with Half-Light, he could have easily been like another Pontiff. The potential was there to make him a really cool boss, but no, it was just dog shit. And then don't even get me started on the player invasions. Like, it's just not a boss, is it? Like, what are we doing here? All right, next up, Slave Knight Gale, my glorious king. All right, I know I said Medea's my favorite fight, but I can't, okay? That's a fucking lie. Slave Knight Gale was absolute cinema the first time I fought him. This was one of the most fun fights I've had fighting any boss ever. It was so good. And this is what I talk about when I say three-phase bosses that just get cooler over time. Everything about this fight is just perfect, man. You know, it's not easy, but it's also not too hard. Because he's so tanky, you get a fun and drawn-out fight every single time. His moves are super cool, but not too complex. He's got some good delays on him. You have to learn which ways to roll because you can't roll the same way every time, or you'll get caught by his cape and stuff. Like, nah, this fight is so good. You know, it's one of them ones that doesn't give you too much anxiety from it being too hard, but you still have to pay attention and be alert. And don't even get me started on the soundtrack, bro. Oh my god. It's so beautiful. Yeah, I just put the soundtrack on now. This is definitely the best soundtrack in the game. The phase 3 music just gives me goosebumps straight up. Like, the whole fight just feels like you're at the end of the world, you know? It's just two guys fighting to the fucking death. Lightning is going off everywhere. All the dark souls are just spilling out, man. It's so good. Gale's one of them bosses you wish you could just fight for the first time again, man. That shit was peak. And to be honest, he deserves double S tier. Right, and then last but not least, the Soul of Cinder. I imagine this is a lot of people's favorite boss if you've played Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, right? Well, maybe not Dark Souls 2, but I'm pretty sure he is you in Dark Souls 1, right? I saw a lot of people commenting like plim plim plon or whatever. I mean, I have no idea what it means, but it seems to hit a lot of people in the feels. So pretty much everything about Cinder is good. The only thing I don't like is like his mage phase in phase 1. Cinder's definitely a top 5 boss. I'm not sure where I'd put him. Probably top 3. You know, the soundtrack is beautiful. He's got so many attacks, you know. He's probably got the most attacks in the whole game, surely. Like, he's got his normal sword phase, and then he's got his mage phase, got his pyromancy phase. He has like a phase where his weapon turns into like a pole and he just starts poking the shit out of you. But it's always just a pleasure fighting Cinder at the end of any of these runs. So yeah, I'm not going to waffle on about Cinder. He's just an incredible boss overall. Wouldn't change anything. And once again, one of the better final bosses of the game. I think it's probably top 2. I think out of the 4 FromSoft games I've played, Shin is definitely the best final boss. And then I'd put Cinder in the 2 spot. I do love Radagon and I love Gurman, but they're not really the final boss, are they? Like, you got the Elden Beast and the Moon Presence, and they're just not very good. But yeah, Cinder's him. He's such a great way to end the game. Anyways, that is it, boys. Tier list complete. To anyone who's jumped to the end of the video, hello. If you did skip to the end and you're confused on some of these spots, just watch the video, I guess. I'll explain everything. So, but yeah, like, sub, all of that stuff. Appreciate it, boys. Peace.